my definition of integrity is to be whole, to be integrated. There's a maturity process of getting there.
Ooh, I like
And
that.
so there's an alignment or a congruence,
Mhm.
right, among all these different dimensions of myself. Part of the meaning of my life is to grow into maturity. And that mindset makes the struggle worth it. It's supposed to be hard.
All right, Jake, let's talk about your integrity model. I really like this idea to, I've always really struggled with this sobriety recovery language with this.
Sure.
I think I think the challenge of applying those words to sexual compulsivity is it seems like there's this finish line. It seems like there's
Right.
this place where like, oh, I'm going to get there, right? Because like, oh, these other, the heroin guy go and he's not doing heroin anymore. It's the alcohol guy. Like all these people are just free of all their. And so I think the problem with calling this recovery, sobriety is I think it kind of sets up, to me at least, I'm not going to necessarily unrealistic. I'm just going to say a plan in place with a lot of holes and pitfalls that I think are not being recognized that can lead to slips and relapses in the future. And the thing I loved about your integrity model is it gives addicts, compulsive men, this way to look at what we call it in my program. I call it process addiction, and I say, listen, you're really not you're not out of your process addiction unless you've flipped over every stone. You got to look under
Sure.
every stone and make sure there's not something under there, because 5 years from now, that stone may be flipped over by something. And if you didn't turn it over through your recovery process, it could potentially lead to something, right? So, can you introduce your model? And again, I don't think we need to go into the specifics of all of it, but can you really just tell us why you chose this model and why you believe
Yeah.
it's a more effective way to tackle recovery?
Yeah, I do. I can, and I do think it is more effective. And here's the thing. I'm an addict in recovery. Like I embrace that. I am that. I did the 12-step thing. It was good for me. I went to CSAT training. I'm a CSAT. I'm on faculty at ITAP now. I can make all those disclaimers. So what I'm saying, the reason I lead with that is I know the traditional model. I understand it. And I am not one that says it's all bad or it doesn't work for anybody. But here's what I also know. I know that that was the only template that existed for a long time. And I would have guys coming who trying to get them to fit that template was like putting a square peg into a round hole. They weren't sex addicts in the traditional sense of the word, but there was something going on, right? So that's one piece of this puzzle for me. The other thing for me is just in my own research, growing in my understanding of how problematic it is to pull out this one domain of life or this one set of behaviors and say, if you correct that, you'll be okay. Because I'm sorry, we are just far more complicated than that. We Nothing exists in isolation, right? And so if it's just sobriety from X act, that is not that's not going to do it. That's your whole turn over every stone thing, right? So what I wanted to do, and this is partially based on my own experience and my own growth as a person, even beyond just, addiction recovery. What I wanted to do is I wanted to say, okay, how can I articulate a model that helps guide people through a holistic understanding of how about just being a healthy,
Mhm.
happy, fulfilled person, right? Addiction can be one thing that gets in the way of that, but there's a whole lot trauma and social messaging and just flat out learned behaviors and all this stuff. So that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, the way, I think my challenge with recovery when I was in it was I started seeing the flaws right out of the gates, because and this is the best way I can articulate it for everybody to understand what I mean by that is I would go into this 12-step meeting And I very quickly realized all of us have different addictions. You see, when you normally go to a 12-step meeting, everyone's consuming the same substance or the genre of substance, right? And so you guys share that together. There's this process around, hey, we're all going to go get our heroin. We're all going to go get our right. So what I found is sex, porn, affairs, emotional affairs, Jake, what people are getting from these, the spectrum's massive, Jake. There is voyeurism and the what you get from that.
Sure.
There is the sneaky, deceptive, defiant piece of it that you can get something from. There is the very human piece of it. I mean, we demonize these. There is when you're having an affair with another human being, there is some human stuff going on. There is, I mean, I can just keep going on and on and on as we look at these behaviors, what somebody is getting from them, and what would cause them to want to get that in this way. Jake, what a massive, and I mean, massive is an understatement. I mean, what a vast. I always tell people you're looking for a needle in a field, in a 20 by 20 mile field. You're looking for like two or three needles. I mean, to me, that's the challenge with this is the breadth of what somebody could be getting from this is so huge. And so to say that they're doing it to emotionally regulate, to say that they're doing it for, again, I'm to your point, Jake, I don't, I agree that people can do that. But I also think, what if they're not? And then what's the danger of that? I often wonder
Right.
when we see this guy slipping and relapsing, we often blame him for not doing enough recovery. My head goes to, are we missing the objective?
Yes. That's I think that's right. I think that, like, for me, I was a true addict. So I was told, I was coached, when you go into that meeting, your brain is going to want to hear all the ways you're not like everyone else. Go in there with the intention of listening for the similarities, not the differences.
Eat the meat, spit
And
on the bones.
and
Mhm.
and you know what? It helped me because even though maybe the expressions, okay, it's in an AA meeting, you're going to have your martini drunks, you're going to have your 12 pack drunks, you're going to have your, bingers, you're going to have your every night a box of wine people, right? So in the same way, you're going to have different expressions of sex addiction, but I could relate because I'm truly an addict. But I know that there are people out there who have problematic sexual behavior, but they are not sex addicts
Mhm.
and they don't connect. They don't connect to the 12-step thing because it's not getting at their problem.
Mhm.
I'm not saying it can. I'm not saying they can never get any wisdom from it. So just to the audience,
Yeah, I mean,
please don't hear
I
what
don't
I'm not
identify
saying.
as an addict, and I still went into those rooms, and I'm not going to say I got nothing out of it.
Sure.
I'm not going to say that at all. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say that.
But I want to what I want to do with this model, with this integrity driven model, is I want to say, look, regardless of where you fall on this thing, I think that we can look at becoming, and I'm just going to use some words that sound real judgmental. And as a licensed professional counselor, I'm not supposed to be judgmental, but this is just me. Just become a good person. Okay. And I'm not saying you're entirely a bad, evil person right now, but I mean, we can all grow, we can all improve, we can all become better people than we are. I really believe that. So why don't you just like have the aim of becoming the person you want to be? Okay, there's these behaviors that are getting in the way. How do we fix that? So that's what I'm trying to get at in this
Yes,
model.
it's and right when you showed that slide, which I don't know if you can, if you're okay with sending that over to my team and having us just share the PDF with people. But guys, if you could just look at what Jake's doing with this, it's really neat, right? Can we truly make it? Because here's the way I look at this. Again, I don't really, even for addicts, I don't even like calling this an addiction because I do just think it's kind of distracting. I think to me, I really just examine the science behind making a decision. Because really, to me, that encompasses compulsivity, that encompasses
Sure.
addiction, that encompasses inadequacies, that encompasses to me, what goes into someone making a decision. And I think if we can, I personally believe men who want to achieve real long term recovery, long term. real long-term recovery, if you focus on what goes through my brain, my body when I make a decision, and where is all of this coming from, and why do I make this decision, but somebody else who encounters the same would make another decision. I think when we get really curious about that, especially together in a group, I think it's one of the more powerful things we can do in recovery is everyone become really curious and non-judgmental around what would make him act that way versus when I encounter that, I don't act that
Right.
way. It's in that space, Jake, where it becomes so much less personal. It becomes
Yeah.
so much, it's not even that shameful. It's more so like, huh, why do I feel the need when I feel unseen, when I feel inadequate, when I feel failing? Why is my go to getting someone else to say something awesome about me? Because that is like personally with my own compulsivity, that's what it is. When things are not going my way, I go buy something that I can brag about. I flaunt something. I That is my go-to is some woman or man, somebody compliment me, somebody tell me I'm
Yeah.
awesome, somebody telling me that I'm superior, somebody tell me that you admire me. But then when I go and look at somebody else, they don't do that, right? So I think when I saw yours, that's what I saw when I saw that whole spectrum was, hey, how balanced are all of these things, and is there pathology in some of these? Because I think
Hmm.
anything going wrong with any aspect of your existence will lead to something funky. And I think that's why I do really like the word integrity. You know, when you look at the definition, it's whole not split, right? It's
Right.
having a, you know, when I saw how you drew it, Jake, here was the thing that connected with me was how able am I to stay me, right? So if I'm, you know, nobody can see this on the podcast, but you know, if the center is real me, who serves and makes good choices and leaves a cool
Yes.
legacy
Yes.
and really is over myself. I'm not obsessed with me. I know that I feel the best when I'm obsessed with everyone else and elevating all of us. So when I'm me, I make those decisions. So the problem is, Jake, what I find is, at least for me, and again, I've never been somebody else. I've only ever been Rolled. I have a really hard time staying in the middle, brother. I'm
Yeah.
floating all over the damn place.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not, it's hard for me to stay in the center. That's why I keep my foot on
Yeah.
the gas in recovery hard. I have
Yeah.
multiple therapists, multiple interventions, because I've just realized my trauma and pathology sucks me away from that quite quickly and quite more and maybe more often than others. And so I just have to police my thoughts and behaviors maybe more than other people might. But Jake, as I explained that, is that, you know, when you're talking about
Yeah.
your model, what hits with that? Was that the goal to make sure that we're in, I don't know what you want to call balance? Like talk to us about
Yeah.
your definition of integrity and how this
Right.
works.
Right. So my definition of integrity, you nailed it. It's to be whole, to be integrated. It's that there's a maturity process of getting there.
Ooh, I
And
like that.
so there's an alignment or a congruence,
Mhm.
right, among all these different dimensions of myself. So the image that you keep referring to, if I can kind of describe it for listeners, think of like four circles of a Venn diagram, okay? And these are meant to represent these four domains of our existence. And this is, I always say this because it's really important to understanding at least my approach here. I say that they are conceptually distinct but functionally united. Okay, that's a lot of jargon, but what does it mean? Conceptually, we can talk about them in isolation, but functionally, in other words, in real life, you can't separate these. So the four domains are the physical, the emotional, the ethical, and the spiritual. Those are the four domains. But the reality is, when I'm dealing with something emotional, I am simultaneously dealing with the spiritual, the ethical, and the physical. When I'm dealing with the ethical, I'm dealing with the other three. So we can't isolate them in real life. We can talk about them distinctively. And so integrity is when there is alignment or there is congruence among these four sort of domains of my being. So, um, I mean, I don't know if you want to kind of walk through those briefly or,
Well, I like what you said because I think maturity, I really love when you use that word because to me, I really love that. I like that better than recovery. I really like that because that's, you know, the way that I've really started to understand this is not I don't even like deficits and inadequacy sometimes, because again, it's just these words start to sound
Yeah,
so, to me, there was shit you were supposed to freaking learn and understand. And it's really hard when you're raised by two flawed humans who don't know a lot of stuff.
right.
Your parents don't know more than they know, right? So to me, there's so much freedom in understanding the likelihood of you learning what you needed to learn at a high level in all of those circles of the diagram
Oh,
is,
yeah,
I'm going to go bold enough to say impossible. I don't think, outside of somebody who has been teleported down into Mary's
right,
belly, I don't know
right.
if somebody has the ability to show up in that capacity ever. Raised in America by two human beings who were
I
raised in America.
I think that's exactly right. And I want to go one step further with that idea, Roland, and I want to say, and it's good. And it's a good thing because the journey, and now I'm going to sound like one of those 90s, posters in a office or whatever, but the journey of reaching maturity is valuable and important, and it's what life is about. Like I think, when we talk about the spiritual domains, the spiritual domain is about getting outside of myself, right? About connecting to that which is beyond me and above me and having a purpose that is beyond me and above me. It's about meaning. What's the meaning of all of this, right? And what if, for me, this works for me, okay? Part of the meaning of my life is to grow into maturity.
Mhm,
And here's what that does for me. That mindset makes the struggle worth it.
mhm.
Like it's supposed to be hard. Okay. We so often in this culture, especially where we have such access to instant gratification and instant satisfaction and instant answers. The moment we hit up against a little bit of struggle, we experience a little bit of challenge, we think, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do differently? And I'm saying, no, that embrace it, hug the cactus. The struggle might be the evidence that you are on the exact right path, that you're doing the exact right thing, right? If you're working out and you never feel strain, are you working out?
Yeah, right. Yeah, good.
No,
Yeah, good.
no. And so that's the physical domain,
Right.
right? Why would we think we're any different emotionally, ethically, and spiritually?
Right. Yeah. So well said. I think it's chapter 7 of my book. It's called "Recovery is Not a Burden." And
Mm,
really, I always tell everybody, if recovery feels laborious and annoying, or boring or monotonous, you're doing it wrong.
yeah,
Find a different method, find a different group. The guys in my group count down the days to their group's next intensive. They look forward to it. They get, like, seriously, when we're a month out, everybody's like, "Ooh, hey
yeah,
guys,
here
I'm
it
so
comes.
excited to see." Yep. I had a kid asked me one time, very successful young man. He said, "Roland, is it ever done?" Because we kept flipping over stones. And
Mm,
he's just like, "Gosh dang it, another stone." I was really, And he said, "Roland, is it ever done?" And I told him, I said, "I hope it's not, man." I said,
that's
literally,
right.
now that I'm on a self mastery journey, and that's like my priority is to be what Roland was sent here to be. God is all I want to do. I have a hard time like doing anything else besides tapping into my purpose, my calling, my unique abilities, who I've been sent here to serve. It's all I like to think about, and that to me, that's what recovery is about, right? I mean, the sense of the word, right? Recovering what was lost. What were you sent here to
Yeah,
do? What were you called to do? And how far away are you from that? I wanted you to I wanted you to just make this a little bit more tangible for people, Jake.
yeah,
When so if somebody's in recovery and maybe they're doing this like monotonous kind of scripted check off the box thing, which I would say even guys who think they're not checking the box, a lot of them when I meet them, I'm like, hey, I hear you and I love the passion, brother, but you are a box checker still. I mean, you're not really making recovery your own.
right.
You're kind of just wandering around in the recovery spaces, gleaning what happens to land in front of you. It's more of like this opportunistic recovery, and I think that happens slow. I know I get a lot of crap for what I'm about to say, but I still believe it. There's therapists who believe that they don't like talking about like hurrying things, rushing things, accelerating things. I'm sorry. I just disagree. I think there is a method to all of this. And I think for the person who wants to dive in, I am of full belief you can accelerate it. And so tangibly, Jake, for the guy who's a box checker, how
Yeah.
does he transition his recovery to a method similar to yours?
Yeah. So here's what you do. Here's the first step. You got to swap out the first question that pops into our mind when we encounter some situation, some dilemma with our partners or workers. Maybe it is like a, am I going to go do this behavior that I said I'm not going to do anymore? Maybe it is more directly kind of recovery related or whatever. Instead, here's what we often think: what should I do?
Mhm.
What should I do here? Right? Even with my wife, like something's off, we have a little spat, whatever, and I think, what should I do? No, wrong question to start with. The first question is, who do I want to be?
Yeah, I like that. Mhm.
Who do I want to be? And that that we could spend an hour just talking about that one question. But here's the basics of it real quickly. I I am part of something larger. I'm going to leave a legacy one way or another, right? I need to have a vision for what this all means. What is the meaning of everything, but how do I fit into that?
Yeah,
That's
otherwise
the
it's an accidental legacy.
yeah, yeah, right.
Right.
It's right, and it's probably not going to be what I want it to be if it's not intentional,
Mhm.
right? So it starts with these big kind of existential questions, and you don't have to have all the answers there, but like, what's my meaning and purpose? Like, start there, and don't focus on what you don't know. Focus on what you do know. Well, I know I want to be a good dad.
Mhm.
Maybe. Okay. Or I know I want to be a good husband. Or I know I want to leave the world a better place because of me. Okay, great. Let's start there. That's the spiritual realm. That gives meaning to everything else.
Mhm.
Next, you're going to have to ask yourself, okay, what kind of person do I need to be to reach that end? That's values.
Mhm.
So go Google core values, pick four. All right. It can't be too many. You got to be able to remember them. Pick four. And now here, and this is where the struggle comes in. Now, the physical, you're going to act you're aiming at the spiritual, and with your physical, you're going to act in alignment with your values to get to the spiritual. You know what I'm leaving out? The emotional, because it's the last one to come on board.
Yeah, true that. I agree. Yeah.
Right? Because if we just let our emotions in the moment drive the bus, we're going to end up all over the place. Emotions change, they're fickle, right? But here's the thing: when I act in alignment with my values and I feel myself move toward that greater purpose, my emotions change and they come along.
And they
And it's
help
like,
guide
you know
you.
what?
They help
That
guide
felt
you.
good.
Yeah, they help
That's
guide
right.
you. Yeah, they become your ally.
Right. So just know that that's going to probably be the last piece to really come on board.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean
Dude, I
that's a
love it.
very quick summary of how you do
Yeah,
it.
no, Jake, I love that. I think what we'll close by is, um, eh, and I don't know. I'm always so hesitant to go here because it's so woo woo. It's so 90s motivational poster. But, to me, Jake, recovery will be limited and handicapped unless it's about what you just said. I don't believe we are here to not do things. And I
Mm,
think that's a huge pitfall with again, it's why I don't like words like sobriety, recovery, addiction. It's all about stopping shit.
right.
To me, humans, I always say, when you look at human psychology, we are freedom from is one of the weakest motivators. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be alone. I don't. But when you look about people who focus on what they don't want to become, they're very, very unmotivated. The only time they become motivated is when they get closer to being that thing they don't want to be. Then they're very
Right.
motivated.
Right.
But as they get away from it, they become less motivated. So if they don't shift to what psychology, what they call freedom to, the
Mm,
freedom to become something. What we find with that is the motivation's 20 times stronger. And not only does it, you get more motivated the closer and closer you get.
that's
It's not the
right.
opposite. So, but I want to close by a quote that I love. I genuinely believe. And I know this is going to sound really bizarre, but I think the stuff that happens to us is supposed to happen to us. It's a direct reflection of where we are. Guys talk to me all the time about like shame resilience, and there's all these different things. And I'm not really a big fan of them. I always say, and this is so unpopular, I'm about to say, guys, we're a victim of this. And I know your wife would hate to hear that, but the shame belongs to the adult film industry for producing this content. The shame is the government for not doing a better job of regulating who gets their hands on all this stuff. The shame is on everybody who filled your brain with all of this crap, because now you're just acting compulsively on a lot. But to take on that shame, like you invented porn, like you invented, um, you know, uh, guys are a lot, we're victims of a lot of this crap being placed in front of us. You're going to want to do sexual stuff. So don't carry the shame around that. There's nothing wrong with you for doing that. These other people preyed on you. They didn't protect you. They placed this crap in front of you without explaining the consequences of what was going to happen. Now you have to live with it. But to me, Jake, I believe when all this nonsense is going on in your life, I'm going to quote Yoda. Uh, he says, uh, he says, we are what they grow beyond. To me, if you ruminate on what you've done, if you let that define you, if you let that be even the fuel for your recovery, I don't know how far you'll go. We are what they grow beyond. I love that Yoda quote. Everyone after you is going to another one that I love. I don't know who said this one. Our ceiling becomes their floor. So to
Mhm.
me, where I see guys kicking ass in recovery are ones that understand, hey, these are the cards I dealt. These are the things that I have done. I can't change the past. What I can do is prevent them from happening again, make all the amends that's possible. And where I see guys really thrive is, what do I need to do to make sure that I don't contribute to this and that I can protect as many young men from falling into this as possible. When we do that, I see shame go down. I see constructive and productive thinking. I see the
Right.
relationship around all of this change. And I really do. I see guys start to really thrive. It's a productive, tribal, healthy way of getting into integrity so that we can do something that matters.
Yeah, it feels good to become a better person.
Yeah.
It
Well said.
does. It feels good. And we could, maybe someday we'll have a whole other conversation about
We
shame,
will.
because that we could go way down that rabbit hole, but to at least right size it, to know what's healthy and what's not. And then exactly what you said, I think is huge. When you act, it's not a thinking exercise. You're not going to think your way out of shame. You're not going to think your way into maturity. You're not going to think your way into recovery. You got to, it's what you do. It's what you do with your body, and so what I do with my body, being purposeful about that, having the vision, knowing the pathway with my values, trusting that my emotions are going to come alongside. That's how we grow. That's how we mature.
And it heals the marriage, in my opinion. I think guys are always so disappointed in, why doesn't she recognize this? Hey, I've been sober for 3 years. What's the deal? I don't think she's hunting for how many sober days you've collected. She
That's
wants to
exactly
know,
right.
how safe am I being with this guy for the next 10 years? You know where she finds the safety? Where's his North Star? And when it's rooted
That's right.
in integrity and legacy, I believe that builds more safety than any amount of chips you can ever collect.
100% agree with that. Yeah.
Jake, I love this. Hey, for the guys listening, how can they be on the lookout for this new model? What's coming down the pipeline? How do they participate? Give us some
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, so the best thing to do would be to jump on my email list. Yeah, we send a lot of emails. Just delete the ones you don't want, but just look for an announcement for our integrity driven recovery program getting launched probably this fall. And Yeah, or just reach out. Jake at daringventures.com. Just reach out if you're interested in working this model, because I am looking for a beta group of guys to test it out.
Oh yeah, I love it, Jake. I was thrilled when I heard about it, and this podcast only anchored the direction you're headed. So thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.